Welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast, bringing you authentic and vulnerable stories that will inspire you to breathe fire on this world and become your own hero. Here's your host, Blaise Hunter.
Hello, welcome to Blaise the Trail podcast. I'm Blaise Hunter, and I am a fertility expert. No, I don't help people get pregnant. This is a different type of expertise. I actually inspire women to birth confidence, to birth their books and business ideas, dreams, passions, and goals, as well as help them discover peace amongst infertility. After going through my own sets of traumas and tragedies, dealing with a rare disease, and experiencing 3 miscarriages, I decided to take charge of my life and not let life happen to me, but rather become the hero of my own life. I am not barren. I continually birth my purpose every day. So that's why I created this show, to demonstrate how even though we all experience setbacks and disappointments, we still have a destiny to birth. We just need to blaze the trail and be expecting. This podcast will inspire you to lean into your hardships and allow them to be the vehicle that transports you into becoming the hero of your life so you can breathe fire on this world. This week's episode is called The Viewpoint, and some points we'll cover are how a former journalist helps people achieve a different viewpoint in real estate, the art of a thought-provoking question, and why it is so vital to ask meaningful questions. And I have my friend here, Madeleine Perez, to speak on this topic. Madeleine is a poised and tenacious real estate professional who provides the highest level of service to each client. She acts with honesty and integrity, making sure her clients are fully supported and informed when buying and selling a home. Born and raised in New York City, Madeleine was educated at Wesleyan University and Columbia University School of Journalism. She was an award-winning producer for ABC News, covering politics, business, and real estate. Later, she became a freelance editor for Los Angeles Magazine. As a journalist, Madeleine learned valuable skills that she would apply to a real estate career, gaining people's trust and respect, excelling in high-pressure situations, and reacting with speed, composure, and precision. Madeleine combines her expertise of real estate trends and passion for exploring the very best in Los Angeles to give her clients an educated and well-rounded viewpoint and an unmatched caliber of market knowledge. Her personalized approach, asking poignant questions, listening to individuals' needs, and delivering comprehensive advice has earned her a stellar reputation in the business. Welcome, Madeleine, to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You know, this is such a great topic to have. I'm a former journalist, so are you. I think that we can really dive in deeper about the art of questions and critical thinking and digging below the surface to get to the heart of the matter. And so I'm excited to speak with you today.
Me too, absolutely.
So we touched on your bio there and your background, but could you just take us to your backstory a little bit more and how you went from being in news to helping people achieve this different viewpoint in real estate?
Yeah, sure. So like you mentioned, I'm a graduate of Columbia School of Journalism. I had worked in, and grown up in New York City and worked in publishing previously. And at some point I reached a turning point where I realized I wanted to be the journalist, not represent the journalist publishing their book. So I went back to school, and really that was a real stepping stone for me because I went directly to ABC News on the national news desk, which is unusual. Usually people start off on the local level, and my first job was covering the presidential election. It was pretty intense and a great experience, and continued on to cover the following one as well. But as my life changed, my career path kind of changed. I had always covered real estate as it pertained to business and had a love of real estate, but had never really pursued it as a full-time career. When I decided to relocate with my family to Los Angeles from New York, I slowly started to watch what was happening in the real estate market and realized there was an opportunity there for me, and the timing was right as well to go get my real estate license. And so it was, in a lot of ways, a complete career switch, and a lot of ways also just made a lot of sense and wasn't that different from what I had been doing previously.
Oh, that's fantastic. And yeah, I love how, it was one of your beats, so to say, to like cover real estate, right. And it kind of probably unveiled a passion for you, right?
Absolutely. That was one of the more interesting things for me because I at one point was covering, the economy crash in the United States. So, and a huge part of that was because of the real estate market and the foreclosures and all of that was really what the contributing factor, not only to the economy crashing, but to how the election turned out. So having to really learn every detail of that in order to do my job really sparked an interest in real estate that I didn't know I had.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of people start off in a career because you do have an interest, or you end up and you take schooling and you end up in a career. And often we still ask ourselves, like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Or what is my purpose? And I think that's probably the whole point of this show today, is really, it's okay to ask the question. Is this what I really love? Is this something I want to do long term? Is there something more I can do? Is there a different path? And I think that you showcase that and you embody that you asked the question and then you took action on it. So that's a really amazing thing for you, and you're stepping into more interest areas and more passion.
Yeah, and for me, it was a slow, long process to kind of get to that point. But I've always believed in reinventing yourself. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I graduated college. I worked in book publishing for Random House, and really reached the end of my learning curve there, and said I'm going to go back to school. And everyone said I was nuts, and I did it anyway. And became a journalist, and then ultimately a real estate agent. And I've had multiple careers, and I just don't subscribe to the notion that who you are when you're 25 professionally needs to be who you are when you're older. You can change. And your interests change also. And so you don't have to, it's great for the people who have the same career their whole life, but that's just not my path. And I wanted to do something new. And this was it.
That's fantastic. So you seem to draw on many aspects of your journalism career and apply those characteristics to what you do now in real estate. How does posing thought-provoking questions help you as a realtor?
It helps so much, because a lot of times with clients, they come to you and they're either new to the process or they're very set in what they think they need and want. And so it's with the questioning and the conversations and the open communication that you actually come to the place of what they actually need. And so I think, my ability to really have long conversations and open communication throughout the process has really helped. I've had clients insist they want to be in one particular area, and we look and we look and we look, and nothing's ever right. And then, it's by me continuing the conversation that we actually figure out, this isn't the location for you. Where you don't actually want to live in a 2-story house. You actually want a 1-story house, or you need a garage because your mom's going to be moving in. Whatever it may be, it's that, inquisitiveness that actually helps me steer people in the direction of their actual needs. So I think being able to kind of read people and read situations are skills that I learned as a journalist, but they've helped me immensely as a real estate agent. And it's more than intuition. It's also just training.
For sure. And I think you touch on a good point there, just like being inquisitive and curious. And often the majority of the population actually doesn't really know themselves that well. And so they can't necessarily always articulate what they're looking for, what they want, what their needs are, because they don't know. But someone that can ask a question or formulate a question in a different phrase or a different way then piques them to share what's actually inside that they didn't even know before, and then you're able to pull that from them. And that's a really unique talent to have. So that's awesome. Do you find that super helpful to have that background and then pull that from people when they didn't even know what they really wanted?
Oh, absolutely. It helps me every single day. With my clients, even with vendors, like home inspectors and lenders and stuff, there's always an element of, when someone specializes in something, they tend to take their knowledge for granted. And so, I come from a place of, let's start as if I know nothing, because you have to kind of assume that a client they don't know what a home inspection even means sometimes. And that's perfectly fine. But I come from a place of, let's start from square one, whereas I think other agents don't realize how much knowledge they already have, and they tend to use phrases and terms and kind of inside baseball language that really confuses people and makes it feel more stressful than it needs to be. And so for me, I tend to start out from the beginning and really just explain the basic terms and then stop and say, do you have questions? Because it's complicated. And here in California, real estate is different than other parts of the U.S. because we do not use attorneys for transactions. So the real estate agent is also basically, although I do not have a law degree, handling a huge portion of the legal aspects of a deal. And so it can be very, very dense and complicated. The paperwork is hefty, and any normal person is going to have a million questions throughout the process because it can be extremely overwhelming. And there's no lawyer there to kind of explain the legalese. So it's on me to be a clear communicator. And so, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it helps me every single day.
Totally. And so, buying and selling homes, that's a very personal thing. No matter what it is,
Sure.
People have emotional attachments to either selling or buying or what they're looking for. That is their home. That is the structure of their life, and I'm a former journalist as well. And I loved asking questions and getting to the heart of the truth. What intrigued you about journalism in that way of digging for the story and getting to the heart and the pulse of a story? And then how did you transition that into getting it, into applying that to the personal level of the heart of people in the structure of their home?
Yeah, so as a journalist, I mean, I had a weird job. I was officially an analyst and a consultant for the political team at ABC News covering the election, but I worked a lot with the polling people, like political polling. So I was working with people who knew a lot about numbers and data, but not a lot about how to communicate that information and turn it into a readable story for the average person. So I spent a lot of my time kind of translating, and I think that that's really carried over in my business now because I spend a lot of time kind of translating, making, the language and the terminology and all that stuff clear to people, and really reading the people and reading the personalities involved and reading the needs.
Oh, that's awesome. And like I said about being the personal and emotional attachment, how do you adapt to because each different client and buyer and seller are going to be different and different emotional needs and attachments. How do you transition into that? How do you get to the heart of people and understand what they want and give them the best experience?
It really takes time. A lot of my clients are referrals or repeats. So there's already a little bit of trust there because someone they've trusted has given them my name and number, right? But then it's on me to kind of learn who these people are. And that just takes time and trust. It takes time to build. But it's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of, spending time looking at houses together. You build a bond and a rapport. There's lots of phone conversations. There's lots of emails. I mean, you're working with this person nonstop for, 30 to 45 days is our typical escrow. And so you really just have to know how to read people. And you also have to read couples because there's always an alpha and always a beta in a couple. And there's one person who they each have different strengths and bring different things to the table. So I may be talking about the financial aspect of it with the wife, but I'm talking about the design aspect of it with the husband, or whoever it may be. So you kind of have to feel for whose strengths are what and who has an interest where and kind of, gear the conversation while also making sure everyone feels included in every step of the process. So it's a delicate balance.
It is. And I'm a huge House Hunters International kind of guru and, junkie. And I often see the realtor becomes almost like a marriage counselor. Do you find that you're often a counselor on a personal level between the two different opinions and achieving a balance between the two or whoever's involved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In any situation where you have more than one buyer buying a house, whatever it may be, a couple or a daughter and a mom or whomever it may be, when there's more than one person involved, yes, you are absolutely a therapist. I've literally escorted people outside and had to calm them down, take a deep breath. Literally had to be a therapist. It's very emotional. We're spending a lot of money. Houses in Los Angeles are expensive, and that can be emotional as well. You're suddenly spending, it's the biggest purchase you'll ever make in your life. That's emotional in itself. And so, yeah, all the time I'm playing therapist. And just kind of, you get to know people so well that you can see their signals when they're stressed or when they're not interested in something, or when something's off. You just tend to start to sense it because you could just get used to people. And I just have a natural empathy also, so I can kind of sense people's emotions, I think, more than some other people can. So that really helps me too.
I think more and more we're seeing how empathy is a common thread, and no matter what business or what venture you're taking on, because it's not just like, cut and dry, black and white, these are the numbers and these are the facts and this is the deal. We're really focusing on now that there's such a human aspect and the heart of the matter. And just like as journalism getting into the heart of the story, it's really about touching people's hearts and pulling at the empathy factor, understanding and relating to people, resonating and understanding what they're going through to get to the best outcome. So how do you challenge yourself all the time to connect with empathy and connect with the people involved in your deals?
For me, I don't feel like it's a challenge. It does come kind of naturally. It always has. I think some people are just born that way, honestly. The trick is to not let it intrude into your life so much so that it impacts your day and your emotions. Mm-hmm. You have to set realistic boundaries. If I have a client texting me at 1 o'clock in the morning and hysterical about something, I'm not going to respond. It's about being there for people, but not being so intruded upon that it can get kind of out of control. So that's the challenge to me, because my instinct is to always be there and be support and be help and emotional, and clarity and all that stuff. And sometimes I have to stop myself and say, like, I have my own responsibilities. I have multiple clients, and I'm going to have to scale this back a bit. That's more of a challenge for me.
And same with me. I'm so empathetic that I take it on and I take it home, and it becomes almost like a burden for me. So it's learning for me how to be caring and empathetic, but also leave it somewhere where I don't take it on and let it to be my stress, right?
Exactly. And I think as women also, we're more naturally inclined to do that and take on more than we should and not take care of ourselves. So I'm very mindful of taking a step back when I need to.
That's fantastic. And that is, like you said, it comes naturally to you. And that's good, because that's like a natural gifting. Because a lot of times empathy is learned, whether you go through a hardship and you learn to connect on a different level because you've been through hard things, or you naturally just have that deep heart connection and you're able to tap into that with other people. Was it a little bit of both for you? Have you been through different challenges and setbacks that created empathy, or have you always had that kind of tender heart where you could connect with people?
I think I've always had the ability to connect with people. I wouldn't say I'm not the type of person who wants to have a spotlight on them. I'm better in smaller groups on an individual setting, because I get a better feel for people that way. But I think it's always kind of been a natural thing for me. Certainly something I've worked on in 3 years. Of course, like anyone else, I've been through challenges, health challenges, and I've been through personal challenges. And, look, I lived through 9/11, things like that change your life forever. So, of course, that informs the way you behave the rest of your life. And having a child also informed my life in a very different way as well, because then you have to stop and always put someone else ahead of yourself. I do think that there is an inborn element to it as well.
Yeah, and that's fabulous that you were able to understand that about yourself, because, we should, as humans, know our strengths and our weaknesses and allow them to work for us. And so whatever our natural giftings are, we all have them, and let them work for you. And that's amazing that you're able to utilize that in different careers like journalism and now real estate. And it's a great quality to connect, because we're all humans and we all have a heart. So getting to the heart of the matter is actually very vital, and no matter what business you're in, right?
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned there, you've been through 9/11, you've had some health challenges, you've been through setbacks, and you've rallied through and you've pushed through, and you're really living out a great life and purposeful life. And part of that is the art of asking questions. So do you think as a society, we could bridge many gaps with understanding and empathizing and achieve better success if we all just challenged ourselves to ask more meaningful questions?
Yeah, I think that absolutely. I think, we all have I believe we all have a responsibility to inform ourselves and to do a good job of that. And the only way to do that is to ask the right questions and ask more in-depth questions, and in every aspect of your life. I think we don't do enough of that. I think we're always in such a rush that we have kind of stopped doing that. We just want the end result, and we don't care about quality as much as speed. So, I think really delving deeper into any topic with more meaningful questions would make everything better because you're getting a more accurate answer, right? And I think that that's something we all need to kind of work on and do a better job of. I mean, I'm guilty of it, of rushing through things to get something done and maybe not asking 2 or 3 of the questions I probably should have asked. I think everyone has that moment. So much is expected of us now, and we're looking so quickly at everything that it's understandable how it happens. But yes, I do think that it would make a huge difference.
Totally. And even just asking a follow-up question, like you said, like asking the second and third question, or taking a pause to listen, because the art of a question is also the other end of it, which is listening for a response. Because sometimes we don't often get what we expect, and then we shut it down instead of just listening more, right?
Yeah, and I think if people listened more, they would hear that some often you hear like, well, that's not, someone will be like, that's not what you said. And if you had actually stopped and listened, actually the person actually did tell you exactly what the answer they're telling you. They told you, you just weren't listening. The message is usually there, and sometimes it's not even verbal, but you have to just read the signs, physically, signals, eye contact, all kinds of stuff factor in to getting accurate information. So yeah, listening is a huge part of it. Of course, you can ask a million questions, but if you don't listen to somebody's answer or give them the opportunity to finish what they're saying, because I see that a lot too, where people ask questions and they don't let the person finish answering. You're doing yourself a disservice.
Totally. And I love that about just listening and asking and constantly going back. Because even I look at my 7-year-old and she'll come home from school and I'll say, how was your day? And she'll be like, good. And then that's the end of it. Or it's up to me because I'm the parent and she's 7. So it's up to me to say, oh, did you have anything that made you feel happy today? Or was there anything that made you feel sad today? And then I'll get a whole bunch of different answers. But if I would have just stopped it at good, we wouldn't have gone any further, and I wouldn't have found out what made her sad, or it was a highlight. So it is about formulating another follow-up or asking it a different way to maybe get deeper. And it's about getting deeper to connect with people on any level, hey?
Right, and that's why phrasing is so important, right? I mean, you can ask a yes or no question, or you can ask a more detailed question. I always go with the more detailed question because that's going to give me the information I need. And as a parent, I totally get what you're saying. That's my experience as well. And it pertains to my work as well. The more in-depth questions I can ask and more follow-up questions I can ask, the more information I'm going to get.
It would probably be almost beneficial in any career to kind of take, if there was a little course, a journalism course of how to ask meaningful questions and deeper questions and detailed ones, because we learn that as journalists. And I think that's part of your success is that you knew how to do that. But most people don't know how to do the follow-up or do a detailed question. That would be kind of cool to take a little refresher course, like we take negotiating and all that kind of skills. Maybe we should take, question skills course, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not something that's really taught, right? I didn't learn it until I went to graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a really good undergrad, but you're not really taught about asking questions. You're just taught to let the teacher teach, right? So I think that's a really good idea. I think it's a valid point. Learning how to ask questions is something that requires training. It doesn't come naturally really to any of us.
Yeah, I think kids are really good at that because they're curious. And they're just always asking, they go through that stage of why and how come. That was my kid. And it was oh my God, no more how comes. I don't know. But it was a learning curve for me because, adults lose that curiosity. And it's so important to harness that again because we're given so many different information like social media, and we're bombarded with information that we don't even feel like we need to ask because it's given to us on a platter on all portals. But we need to ask the question because maybe that's not truth. Maybe we need to weigh the facts and the evidence. And, it's about us having those internal dialogues even with ourselves and asking the question. And it's not disrespectful, and it's not just teacher tells and you listen. The amazing things that come from the debates, come from the questions, come from the different angles. And look how better of a society we would be if we just all started getting more curious, hey?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I just think that, at some point the curiosity gets stifled, or we're maybe not stifled, but it takes a backseat to other stuff because we're just bombarded by so much at this point.
Yes, and how do you decipher what's truth and what's fake? And it's about you have to become your own question answer, your own researcher, your own reporter in life. This isn't just about getting a story. It is about, understanding what is truth and not, and what is true for you and how you want to live your life. And, we can get caught up in a lot of fake and the ideals of never to question, but then are we really ever finding out truth in the heart of the story or the heart of life, right?
Yeah, no, it's totally true. And I see it in real estate too. If I hadn't asked some very detailed questions and gone with my instincts on certain things, there were red flags to me, and luckily I followed through and asked more questions and started to deep dive a little bit and saved myself a lot of grief. But had I not done that, you can get yourself into troubled waters very easily if you don't.
Yes. And I think that's just a lesson to all of us is just, trust that gut, because that gut is telling you something, whether to stop talking or to follow up. But start learning to trust your gut and the curiosity of that, and it'll lead you on an amazing, fulfilled life. I think a more rich life if you trust your gut a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think we're trained not to a lot of times, but I think more often than not, our initial instinct or initial reaction is correct.
Awesome. I'm loving this conversation and how different topics arise just from questions. So this is an awesome conversation of just piquing people's interest to ask more questions, to be curious. And you don't have to lose that when you're an adult. Look at your child and look what all they ask. They ask it's not stupid, but it's just you would never ask that. And yet it comes to their mind because they don't know. And I think we should just ask that. Whether you're in looking for a home, there's questions to be asked. Whether you're whatever career you're in, ask the question, get curious and wonder, and you might find out something that you never even knew you needed to know. And now you know it, and it's knowledgeable, and it's wisdom, and it's maturity. And I think that's a fantastic, avenue to take every day, is just allow yourself to be more curious. I love that you took that from journalism and applied that to a whole other career. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I did too.
And so what other interests and values do you bring to your clients to help them achieve the best viewpoint for their needs?
I come from a really technology-based agency, so, a lot of the work we do is really kind of cutting edge, virtually and online, a lot of data usage, a lot of tools that other agencies don't have. So it's I kind of, come from that, in terms of being a journalist and constantly wanting to learn new technologies and new things that help make me better at my job, kind of translated into real estate. And so it's why I chose Compass as an agency, because they were doing something so different. So I tend to bring that too to my clients, that constant willingness to learn. And they're always throwing new technologies and new systems at us. And so because I'm the kind of person who likes to absorb new information and constantly be kind of a student, it's been really beneficial for me and really beneficial for my clients as well.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. And so we've been in a crazy time since March. How has COVID impacted your career? You're in LA, and what have you been doing to kind of battle this whole shutdown and stay in business?
For sure, it's been a very strange time since March. It's completely changed our business. We, just logistically, there's all this extra paperwork to even do showing. We're no longer allowed to do open houses. I can only do private showings. The house has to be cleaned to certain standards and protocols. Lender requirements have gotten much more strict. It's definitely been a challenge. I'm lucky in that I have a strong client base of referrals and repeat clients. And I also know the business really well and have the contacts so that, my business is maintained through this. And I've done it, as safely as possible, obviously, and following the rules and regulations, which are constantly changing. So having to constantly kind of pivot and change and pivot and change and pivot and change and be okay with that has really helped me kind of survive this market, where I think other agents who aren't inclined to work that way and just want to do things one way and have for a long time are really having a hard time keeping up. I think on the plus side, first of all, the market here is still strong. We have a housing shortage. So as soon as the market comes on the market, it's still a bidding war, especially since mortgage rates are so low right now here. So it's enabled buyers to afford more. There are still a ton of buyers in the market. I was a buyer myself. I actually bought a new house in July. I mean, if there's a better example of how confident I am in the market, there's that. I would not have bought a house for my family if I didn't think it was a good time. But it's definitely adjusted things. In some ways for the better. Like we're no longer seeing buyers come in who aren't real. We're not seeing looky-loo neighbors. We're not seeing people who aren't well qualified. The people coming have to provide documentation in advance and can only do it through a private showing. So they're serious buyers. So it's kind of whittled down the process to only the real people, which I've actually preferred. So there have been some advantages, and we haven't seen, in California at least, we haven't seen foreclosure issues or short sale issues yet. I guess people's finances yet. I don't know. That may change. I don't have a crystal ball. I hope it doesn't go to that. But, it's definitely made things odd. I haven't been in my office since March. I've been working from home entirely because our offices are all shut. But coming from a digital virtual agency has made it very easy. And I think a lot of other people probably struggled more than we did at Compass. But we were already doing everything virtually and remotely if we needed to anyway. So the systems were already in place. So it made the transition for us much, much easier than it might have for other people. So I've been lucky in that respect. But I am juggling a lot. I'm a full-time real estate agent. I'm also got an 8-year-old who I'm homeschooling because our schools are closed. My husband is also working from home. So it's every day is a different adventure, and it's a lot of juggling of schedules and internet and just, needs. But I've luckily stayed busy. And, I attribute that to a lot of factors, but a lot of it is just my reputation and being able to get those referrals and repeat clients. And also just have great vendors that I've cultivated over the years, and lenders and inspectors and all that who I know I can count on, has also made it much, much easier. So a lot of it was, the work I put in over the years prior to this have enabled me now to have kind of solid footing to maintain my job.
Oh, that's fantastic. And you know what? I see an underlying thread there of you still ask the question, how do I pivot this? Okay, we've got an issue. How do I turn this? What can I learn from it? How can I do it better? How can I survive this? Those are all questions. So I think the point is keep asking yourself those questions, those dialogues, ask other people questions, and you never know what will come of it. And you can only dive in deeper, connect more, and you never know where your pearl will come from that problem if you didn't ask a question, right? It's about continually being curious and how to pivot it, correct?
Exactly. And adjust, and being flexible
yes.
is essential.
It totally is. And it's just about never giving up. We're always, it's inevitable. We're humans. We're all going to experience setbacks and problems and hardships. And COVID has proved this is a worldwide thing. No one is immune to it. And so how do we turn our problems? Because I often say, I can't change the fact that I had miscarriages. I can't change the fact I'm going through certain things, or that my husband got laid off, right? But yeah. I can change how I respond to it. I can change how I look at it. And there's a different viewpoint. It's not just, oh, this is so sad, I'm done for. It's okay, there is another angle here. How do I get there? How do I have another viewpoint? And I think the point of talking to you, which is great, is that you're able to connect those two things together, how to get another viewpoint. And it's about asking the question. And I'm inspired by that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I also think, let's be clear, I've had rough days. This has been challenging. This has not been easy, and it's definitely not been perfect. And there are days when, like you said, I have to change the way I'm looking at the situation, or I'm going to go bananas. And so, I don't want to give the impression that this has been all bed of roses, because it's not at all. But I'm doing my best to stay positive and ask the right questions and, stay on the right track.
Oh, perfect. I love that. Oh, this is awesome. I'm having such a great time talking with you about being curious and getting, to the deeper part of the story and to the heart of people and just having a different viewpoint and perception of things. So thank you so much. Where can people get in touch with you if you're interested in real estate or even just having a different viewpoint on real estate and how to get there? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to my website, MaddiePProperties.com, or I'm on Instagram at the same. Those are really the two best ways to reach me. I'm really responsive. So, any questions, you can always send me a DM, send me an email, text me, whatever. I'm always on everything. So, I'd love to hear from people.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Madeleine, for coming on the show. I appreciate having this conversation with you about asking great questions. Let's recap what we talked about. Reinventing yourself is a must to live a passion-filled life. Asking meaningful questions connects us on a deeper level. Be curious, be inquisitive, and make adjustments accordingly to achieve a better viewpoint. Thank you so much, Madeleine, for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you want to learn more about my consulting programs, purchase my book, or have me speak at your next event, visit blaisehunter.com. I do have a free offer for everyone. We're in a pandemic. Sometimes we can feel lost and overwhelmed and have anxiety. Well, what do we do when we're driving and we feel lost? We Google Maps that stuff, right? We go to the map. So I've created a map video of how to guide you through the mess of the day of overwhelm and anxiety and get you back to a place of peace and balance. So head to my website, head to the free offers tab. You can download my map video there. And that's it for this week's episode. Challenge yourself to be vulnerable, lean into the difficulties, and have those open conversations so we can rise up as the heroes of our lives and let us breathe fire together. If you've enjoyed this show, please subscribe and support Blaise the Trail podcast. Reviews are always welcome and very much appreciated. Thanks for listening. I'm Blaise Hunter.
You've been listening to Blaise the Trail with Blaise Hunter. To learn more about how you can breathe fire and unleash the hero within, or to listen to past episodes, visit blaisehunter.com.